Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show, brought to you as always by the Center for Progressive Christianity. It's an incredible place to get all your progressive Christian resources. Great articles there, great liturgies, all kinds of good stuff. Check out progressivechristianity.org. Also by the Progressive Christian Alliance, a movement and denomination that rallies around the principles of justice, respect, and inclusion, and the Christian left, a nationwide ministry and community for progressive Christians and allies. And I am joined, as always, by Mark Sandlin. How you doing today, Mark?
I am doing fairly well, Caleb. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I think this is going to be an interesting movie to talk about.
Of course it is. The Odyssey. I mean, been around for, 3,000 years or
something
whatever?
like that, yeah.
Yeah, not the movie, but the story. Yes.
Yeah.
The movie has been around for a few days now and has already done super well at the box office.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
I cannot wait to get into it. Just a few warnings before we get into this, that if you have not already seen the Odyssey, we will ruin it for you. Of course, the story doesn't really deviate that much. You have had 3,000 years to yourself the story. So there is that. And we hope that you will turn it off and pause and come back if you haven't seen it yet. But before we get into that, we really need a drink. Do you have a drink, Mark?
I do. I took one of the scenes and used that as my inspiration and found a drink that's called the Siren Song. And it's just bourbon, some honey syrup, lemon juice, dash of bitters, and a little rosemary twig as the accoutrement there. There's the garnish. So how about you? Where'd you go with this?
I have a drink called the Siren Song, and it is bourbon and blue curacao, lemon juice, honey syrup, dash of bitters, and a splash of sparkling water. So yes,
yeah, that's. I think it's the first time we did the same one.
Yeah, mine's but mine looks a different color because of the glass, So
yeah,
cheers.
Hey, cheers.
Cheers. Yes.
That's not going to work. The sprig just poked me in the glasses. So
I didn't put the sprig in there, so it won't poke me.
They're just outside my front door, so it smells fantastic. So I pulled one off, but no, it's gone now. Cheers, sir.
Cheers. Yes. Let's take a drink, take a sip, and come right on back.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
You are joining us for our Geek Out segment, where we're going to geek out a little bit about the movie making, about what goes on in the show. And we won't spend too much time doing that. We want to leave enough time for our next segment to be a little bit longer to talk about the politics and the theology that this movie brings up. And, normally this would be the time where I kind of give you 3 or 4 sentences of what this is about. Listen, if you did not pay close enough attention in your English class, that's on you. It's not on me. This is an age-old story. This is where we get the story of the Trojan horse. It's where we get the story of the sirens and several other things. So I'm not going to go there with you. I'm going to assume that you know enough in general, not you, Caleb, but the listener, and just jump right into this. Well, and while I'm saying this, how familiar are you, Caleb, with the source material?
Well, I mean, I did go to mine was my 9th grade English class, and yes, I did sit there and we read it, and the teacher read it, and I remember it was a multi-week kind of project, and so of course, both Greco-Roman theology and pieces of this are also parts of kind of what we do. So familiar, but that being said, it has been since 9th grade English since I sat down and read it. So familiar, but it's been a while. How about for you?
Yeah, exactly the same thing. It had been for me, 40-ish years since
Yeah.
I, had heard this story, and from front to end. So I had to do a little bit of re-educating myself so I could have, some idea of what was going to be happening, what changes might have of occurred in this. But overall, then, what was your take on this movie? How did you feel when you were walking? The whole experience. Not necessarily details, but just your overall experience and what it was like when you left, and were there thoughts about how he did with the source material?
I loved it. It was one of those movies where I sat there thinking like this was a cinematic event. And I didn't go see. I just went and saw it in a regular theater, but it was Saturday night. It was packed, and so I didn't see anybody like bored or like with their phones out or anything
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I typically do at the movie
Right.
theater. It was kind of like all engrossing, or at least, and it was for me too. And watched it. I know like some of the third act in particular, there were some changes made, but and but I thought it was a faithful adaptation. I felt like Christopher Nolan was the right person to tell this story. This is the kind of story that is, I think, is hard to tell,
Yeah.
and the way that Christopher Nolan was able to do it, I thought was very engaging. The cinematography very engaging. The score, man,
Oh,
using
God.
authentic instruments to the time as well. Like that was incredible. It was very
Yeah.
powerful. The fact that like Odysseus's bow was a lute strum
Yeah.
was very, very powerful. So for me, it was just like I was sitting there thinking, wow, this is really a cinematic event. It was also the end of the day. I was tired. At first I felt myself kind of drifting, and then like as soon as the action picked up, like even though I was exhausted, I was there for it. I was engaged. How about for you? What was it like for you?
Similar. Now I
Yeah.
went, unlike you, at night, and I went in the morning on a matinee on a Saturday, and it was a pre
Yeah.
12 o'clock, so 11 in the morning, rated R, IMAX theater, and
Yeah.
and I tend to, the shows that we catch together. If it's one that I want to see on IMAX, the IMAX is about 25 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
I will frequently do a matinee just because it makes it more convenient for me, and it doesn't like
Yep.
go too late in the night or whatever. They're never sold out.
Yeah.
This one was sold out,
Wow.
slap sold out. And I had the same experience. I loved the movie. It kept me engaged. I did think it did not need to be 3 hours. I'm not suggesting it needed to cut out any scenes. I just think some of the scenes stretched on a little too long. They weren't necessary. I think we could have shortened like a 10-minute scene to 5 and not lost storyline, not lost
Yeah.
arc of the character, not lost the emotion. So there was a little of that, but same thing. The soundtrack, incredible. The visuals, incredible. The way he decided to tell the story, it was different than the source material. He told it in a different order, and he had parts of the story being revealed by completely different people who weren't really part of the storytelling. But it was kind of better for a modern audience watching it. One of the things that he said at some point in an interview was, instead of getting the sense that you're reading an epic poem, I want you to get the sense that you're experiencing it, that you are there, submerged in it. And the way I think he chose to go about telling this story really kind of was immersive. You felt like you were in it, and were part of everything that was going on, which brings me to the next thing I want us to talk about a little bit. This is the first feature film, since we both mentioned IMAX. It's the first one ever shot entirely in IMAX. They had to innovate new pieces to put around it so that the film wouldn't make noise when they're doing quieter scenes. After seeing the movie,
Yeah.
you didn't see it in IMAX, but after
I
seeing,
didn't.
do you think that decision actually like paid off? Were there moments where you were kind of like, well, I don't know. That feels like it should have been shot in IMAX, and why would they not want to do that? Or did it feel more just like it was some sort of a, I don't know, a technical achievement more than it was a storytelling achievement? What were your thoughts?
It's hard to say since I didn't see it in IMAX. It was, I mean, I thought it was beautifully shot, and I can
Oh,
see
yeah.
why. It's the kind of film you want to see in IMAX, and so I think it can be both. That it's both a technical achievement and it's the kind of thing that you really want to see. And I think that is something you can say about Christopher Nolan movies in general, is
Mhm.
that the cinematography is always outstanding. His movies are always it's not only impressive storytelling, which it always is, but it's
Yeah.
always impressive to watch. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people come out to see his films, because it's engaging storytelling, and it's the way he shows those stories visually. And that's why I think it was something like 41% of the people who came out to see this are people who only go see like 2 or 3 movies a year, but they came out to see this movie and came out to see it because it was a Christopher Nolan movie. And so I think it's incredible that he has the kind of power to do that, to get people who don't normally go out to theaters to go
Yeah.
to, not just wait for it to come on streaming, but to go and see it. How about you, who actually saw it in IMAX? What did you feel experiencing that?
I don't know if it was necessary that the whole thing be shot in IMAX. I think that was just a technical achievement, and maybe it clicked a box and gave a little notoriety to the movie. Although I would say at least 50, maybe 60% of the movie benefited from being in IMAX. There were moments that things were going on in the center of the screen that were very important, and I found myself with my head turned, looking at the side of the screen, catching other things that were going on, which did serve his purposes of making you feel like you were there and that you were participating in it. And so for me, I think it was a great move ultimately. And I think it paid off many, many times. It did feel it lent. I mean, when you're doing the Odyssey, you better make this feel epic, or it's a failure right off the top if it doesn't feel epic, because it is
An epic poem after all, right?
Yeah,
It better be epic.
So I genuinely think it paid off. I'm gonna try to sneak in 2 more questions here. So the changes had to be made between how he told the story and how the person named Homer told the story. Do you have a change that you think improved the story?
So a couple of, I think so Sinon, I think, was which was Elliot Page's character.
Wasn't even in Homer.
Right, was invented for this.
Was borrowed from another poem from the time about the same kind of gods and everything.
Right, but wasn't in the Odyssey. And
Not at all, yeah.
And so I thought that giving that person give a role and seeing Odysseus's decision to make that person out as a traitor, and then the backstory behind how that person was exploited, I thought was a pretty powerful move, and the way that was tied into the rest of the story. I thought having Elliot Page play that role was wise, and this was a casting decision that, especially kind of in the manosphere of the internet, was something that was really controversial. And there was a lot of hate towards Elliot Page, just like there was a lot of hate towards Lupita Nyong'o, and a lot of hate towards Zendaya as well. In the same for casting, and it was racism and it was transphobia that we saw in those places. But I thought having Sinon there was something that improved the story, and tying that to like a real life person who has also experienced real life marginalization, I thought was
Yeah.
important. How about you?
Yeah, I think most of the changes he made were good changes. The one that I really thought was a necessary change.
Mhm.
I think that everyone would have thought that the movie ended flat if he would have ended the movie the way that the poem ends, because the poem ends ultimately, Odysseus is needing to prove to Penelope that he is Odysseus, and in the poem, she just says, "Well, now that you're here, we're going to move the bed." And he goes, and that's the test, because you can't move the bed. He planted a tree, it grew, and he carved it out of the tree. It wasn't going to be able to be moved. And you can't end a modern movie in a poem that can feel clever and kind of almost like a wink wink and how sweet, how playful. In a movie that's been epic and there's been these giant battles, and that's not going to work.
Right.
And so having to string the bow and shoot it through the hatchets for me was like, that's the way you do this. Like, it needed it to be both about his skill and expertise, but not it also needed to feel kind of warrior like. So I just thought that was a great move. Okay, we're going to squeeze one more in real quick here. And you had already started to touch on this. So you get Matt Damon as Odysseus, Tom Holland as his son, and Hathaway as Penelope. Was there a casting choice that when you heard about it, you weren't real sure, and that it ultimately won you over?
I felt like I guess I just trusted Christopher Nolan in his process. I don't think he's rarely made a casting decision that I've been watching the movie and I thought, oh, that was the wrong person for that role. And so there wasn't anyone that I thought was a bad choice. And I think that his casting decisions really, or the casting decisions really ended up being the right choices. I saw someone online who just said, "Okay, go ahead and hand Matt Damon the Oscar already." And so, I thought Matt
he's in
Damon
a tight field this year. I don't know. I think he's going to get nominated, but it's going to be.
You don't think he's going to win?
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who else is nominated, but he deserves to be nominated. There's a tight field right now already, so we'll see.
Yeah. For me, it was more curiosity, especially as I saw all the hate online. I was curious to see how Elliot Page would be used.
Sure, it was great.
And I thought it was a good decision. I thought maybe Lupita Nyong'o, she had 3 minutes of time. I thought was maybe underused.
I agree. I completely agree. But really stole the focus every time on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, she's incredible, right? She's an Oscar-winning actress, and she had 3 minutes of time. But no, there wasn't anyone that I saw that I was like, nah, I don't know about that. How about you?
When I heard of the casting, it was John Leguizamo. When I heard he was playing that role, and it's such a kind of important emotional role, I was like, why the he's not that dude.
Yeah,
he was so that dude.
He was that dude.
Oh my God, he was incredible.
In fact, I had to. I'm like, wait, is that John?
Is that really him?
Is that him? Yeah, because I really wasn't sure.
It was crazy. It was wild, and he was honestly he deserves. I think he practically deserves the supporting actor because he was so absolutely incredible and fully believable in that role. Anyway, we could geek out even more. I think I had 4 more questions that we could dive into, but like we promised, we need to go ahead and take our break and come back, talk about the politics and theology of the Odyssey.
welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're delving into theology and politics of the Odyssey, and what do you know? Maybe this is a 3,000-year-old story for a reason. There's a lot of stuff in there that has been relevant throughout that time and continues to be relevant today. So, Mark, to start off, just a question about the theological message here. If the Odyssey has a central theological message, I mean, do you think it has one? And if so, what do you think it is?
I'm not sure that his telling of it does. He decentralizes the gods that are very central in the poem, where they are very instrumental in what happens and why it happens, and they have reasons, but they're also sometimes volatile, and so if you went to the poem, I think you could kind of pull together an understanding of theology of the times. Is there I mean, if there is any theology here, it's very soft-souled. It's not in your face, and it would be something around the facts that we tend to look for people and others to blame for outcomes, when the healthiest way is to look at ourselves and not pin it on a God, not pin it on predestination, but own what's going on and recognize that we create what Earth is going to look like. So in Christian parlance, it would be we are responsible for creating the kingdom of God that we want to be in. That's about as close as I would come. I don't know. You've had a little more time to think about that question. I'm curious to see where you landed.
I think it's about redemption of Odysseus. That he goes on this quest, this trip home, and in some ways he takes the trek that that Athena is guiding him on, but it's also one where he has to kind of, over the course of time, reckon with the things that he has done and what he has allowed to happen. And also I think that it speaks to the moral injury of war that Odysseus is experiencing.
I actually think the poem does a better job. Odysseus is more like a PTSD, battle worn, almost non-emotional kind of I think it even does a better job. I like the switch that he made because I think it makes it have more relevance for today. But I don't know. That's just my take.
Yeah. You mentioned the gods, Mark, and I've got a question about them. So the gods in the Odyssey are petty. They're jealous. They play favorites, right? And we see that throughout Greco-Roman mythology. How is that different from the God that Jesus describes? Because I hear a lot of people talk about a God who is petty, jealous, and plays favorites in American Christianity.
Well, the God of American Christianity is petty and jealous and exerts power over people in order to make them be obedient and loyal and worshipful and all of that. But you and I spend a lot of time talking about, writing about, preaching about the fact that that's not who Jesus understood God to be, and that God for Jesus was something that was attached to love and the betterment of people. And if the actions that were being accredited to and pinned on God don't result in the betterment of people or a person feeling loved and cared for, then it probably isn't coming from God. And so, the judgmental, heavy-handed, jealous God doesn't fit in Jesus's painting of God in any way whatsoever. If anything, it is the antithesis of what Jesus talked to us about. So, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a good point, man, because a lot of times when people are talking about God, they want to buy into this like smaller notion of God. And it occurs to me whenever we
Yeah.
hear these small notions of like a God or gods or whatever, that Jesus was really expanding the notion of God in ways that I think we
Hmm.
don't quite understand. That
Yeah.
like
Fair.
if we're not seeing God as a being who experiences emotions in the same way that we as human beings are, well, that's a much grander notion of God. And I think in like 21st century American life, we still have a hard time
Oh,
recognizing that God can be beyond like a human being who is jealous
yeah.
or mad at us if we do something wrong or something
Yeah.
like that. And
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, we anthropomorphize God a lot more than what my understanding that God probably is. And I understand why Jesus did some of that, but kind of had to because of the time he was in and all the other gods and trying to kind of help folks re-understand and reposition. But he certainly, there were moments it was really clear that he understood, as you were pointing out, a God that's much bigger than a thing that experiences life exactly like we do and have the same emotions and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. I liked your take there.
I want to talk about one god in particular, Zeus.
Mm,
And one of the things that we hear a lot about in this movie is Zeus's law,
right.
hospitality.
Yeah.
And it's treated like a sacred commandment almost,
Yeah.
Zeus's law.
Yeah.
Um, why do so many ancient religions place welcoming the stranger at the center of morality? And why do we have such a
Mm.
hard time living into that?
Uh, that's a big question, you know? Why do so many religions make that important? Um, I think part of it is that we tend to mistrust the unknown, distrust the unknown. So strangers could do anything to you. It'd be easier to shun them, to move them aside, to um, not be hospitable to them. And if we are hospitable, it certainly speaks to who we are and what our theology looks like and how we understand who we are to be in the world and what the world looks like. It's kind of weird that it's so important when there are these gods that are angry and mad and tell you to go and destroy other nations and all of this kind of stuff. Because the real outpour, for me, the real theological um, exclamation point that being hospitable is that your behavior tells me what your theology is, and welcoming the stranger is one of the most loving, kind things you can do. And if you're saying that you're destructive, mad God who wants you to, win wars, is the one that's telling you to do it, it feels kind of like, what kind of hodgepodge religion are you knitting together here? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's for me, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I love it, but it's weird that you match it with a God who can be vengeful. I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah.
Why do we do
Yeah,
it?
I
Why do we
mean,
make it
you're
important?
right. It is dangerous. I mean, it's still dangerous to be
Mhm,
hospitable to
mhm,
people, and I think that's the importance of it. That this ancient society obviously was a place where people needed hospitality. It took you forever to get somewhere. You couldn't just hop on a
mhm,
plane and get in a hotel or whatever. It was you depended on family, extended family, friends of friends, and all of these things. And so the only way for you to stay safe as a vulnerable traveler was to depend on other people. And I, I understand the importance of it and the danger of it. And I wish that in our country we would be willing to understand that even if it's inconvenient, that this is the cornerstone of so many religious traditions, and certainly Christian nationalists who claim to want to make this a Christian nation sure seem to forget the portions about welcoming the stranger and the immigrants. And I wish we could do a better job of living into that rather than taking some obscure verses and taking them out of context and trying to live into
Yeah.
that. I want to ask you another question about the gods, Mark.
Yes.
So the gods interfere in politics and war throughout history. And we see that, in all of these Greco-Roman myths. We also hear Christians talk about this in the same way, about God intervening in history.
Yeah.
What happens when people claim divine support for their political causes?
You make a puppet out of God, and that's no God. And not only that, when you claim that God is causing something to happen in the world, you're making puppets out of people, and making them into God's playthings. And once again, any God doesn't need playthings. So that's one of my kind of main reasons why the interaction of God and kicking things around and making things happen. I think there was any God would have made it. I'm going to anthropomorphize, just like I said I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But if you were doing that, that's a God who if it's a God that wants meaning for its creation, you don't go and start kicking it around. I also need to respond. Gus is out there watching, a wonderful guy that's very supportive of lots of work. And no, Gus, this is not iced tea. This is a little bourbon with a few things in it, as you already knew. I like his little laugh came after it.
That's really important. That's really important to know. Yeah,
got to sneak that in there.
The moonshine, Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course it's not. Anyway, but
I love.
So what do you think about that though?
Well, I loved your image of God as a puppet, because I can kind of just see like Trump talking to his puppet God. Do you want me to invade Venezuela? Yes. Divine commandment. Yes. How about Iran? Yes. Invade Iran. So yeah,
even visually, what you just did is exactly what people are doing. They're putting their words in God's mouth.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because ultimately, when we understand God as like this beyond a being, but this cosmic identity beyond all of us, like, well, that's not something that sends you messages in clear statements, right? That is something that you are attuned to or not. And I think that that's something that some of like our Eastern siblings teach us about being attuned to the way the universe is. I think that's different than thinking that God is going to give you the answers. And I think in the West, that tends to be what we think we want, is for answers to just come from the sky and let us know. Hey, I've got other questions, but if I ask you them, we'll talk about them forever, and we will not get to the Make Me Look Stupid segment, and we've got to get to that. So why don't we take a break, take a drink of our iced tea, and come back and try to make each other look stupid.
Cheers. Hello, welcome back. You have joined us for our Make Me Look Stupid segment, where we commence to try to make our co-host look stupid. We do it several ways. It just depends. Sometimes ask them a question that we're pretty sure they don't know the answer to. Sometimes it's just to admit that we feel stupid and that we'd like them to make us look further stupid by telling us things that we don't understand and we're pretty sure they do. And sometimes it's just to make them make a prediction that we know down the line at some point it will probably make them look stupid. So mine's real easy here, Caleb, but it is prediction oriented. Your least favorite.
Okay. All right.
Over or under 6.5 Oscars?
Over. I think it's gonna
I'm
be
with.
over.
I'm with
They're gonna
you.
sweep it
I think
in
they're good. I
nominations
don't.
anyway.
Yeah, nominations. I think I've so far figured out about 13 that I think they get.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably win 7 or 8 of those. But yeah, I mean, it's that good of a movie. So
It is. And like I said, it's an experience, and the fact that so many people are showing up for an R-rated movie too, because I know that was also a
yep.
point of wondering, hey, can it how well can
Mhm.
it do as an R-rated movie? But like it's done so well, and I'll tell you too. The other thing that was really fun about watching this is, I do feel like I've seen a lot of movies this year that have been kind of like mediocre, and it was good to see like a great movie. That was part of
Yeah,
it for me.
it's one of the best movies I've seen in years. It's just
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
And does it have its
Christopher
faults?
Nolan.
Yes, of course it has its faults.
Yeah,
But man, is it good. Man, is it good.
and Christopher Nolan, he just doesn't disappoint, and I think that's one of the
Right.
reasons why people like it. Whether you're doing the Odyssey or a semi-biographical film about
Right.
Oppenheimer or uh, or Batman, whatever he's
Yeah.
doing, or Interstellar. I mean, this great space opera. I mean, no matter what he's doing,
I
he
mean,
approaches it
I
with
mean,
intentionality.
there was Tenet. There was Tenet. Which was
there was
I mean,
there
it was
was
fine.
Tenet, man.
It was still
yeah.
a pretty good movie. It just wasn't
Yeah.
to his normal level.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, Tenet is the only one that I haven't gone back and watched. Like, I watched
I
it
think
one
that's true
time,
for me too.
and I'm
No, I
like,
watched it twice.
well,
I
you
didn't
watched
get it.
twice?
I so much didn't get it the first time that
Yeah.
I was like,
Well, you know
this
what?
director, I need to go back and watch it again because this director is better than this. I don't know what's going.
Now
And
that you
I
mention
did
it,
realize, yeah,
I watched it like half a time through, and I'm like,
right.
I don't know what's
I don't.
going on. I had to restart
get
it.
that.
I
I
had
so
forgot
get
that.
I watched
You came
it
out-
through, and then within the same week went, I got to give him another chance. I know he's better.
Yeah.
I felt immediate like, well, Christopher Nolan's better than this. This must be on me.
Yeah.
So I gave it another shot, and it was a little bit better, but it's not his best movie. But it's not a bad movie, so.
Not his best movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. So prediction, we'll see. We'll see
Yeah,
how many
see.
Oscars they get. Okay, so I have a question,
All right.
excuse me, about the movie itself. A question just about the story here.
Okay.
Mark.
I don't know if
okay,
I'm going to know the answer, but we'll see.
So we find out that 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 one group goes along like trusted trade routes, right? But
Right.
Odysseus and his men, they go a different route. They go the route led by Athena. And so we also see that like Athena wants Odysseus home. So if Athena wants Odysseus home so badly, why did she take him on the most circuitous route imaginable instead of the trusted trade routes?
I think it's because he needed to be humbled before he could actually go home. That if he hadn't have been humbled, when he got home, he would have continued on the road that he was on, which was being the sea people. That we are the enemy within, and that he wasn't ready to understand that yet. He had started to get it with what had happened with the Trojan horse and how they had burnt the city down, and he watched her specifically, the image that he gets of her as a child being killed, and I think it's that connection of he needed to be a little more humbled, and a little more humble is the best word, honestly, because he was being praised as this great general. And if he had gotten back and to rule again with that kind of bravado almost, I don't know that it would have ended up pushing them towards restarting their society in a way that was healthy. So that'd be my take on it. What do you think was?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it's about becoming worthy of being who he's supposed to be. Like if he had come home, you're right, he would have just maybe even incited another war. Because there wasn't time to deal with what he had experienced or what he had his troops do. And that scene where we see the one you just described, where we see Athena like held captive and then beheaded, where it goes back and forth between the figure, like the
statue.
Yeah, and Athena, I thought was really
statue
a
of Athena
scene. Yeah. Right, the statue of Athena, and then Zendaya.
We see them about to behead the girl,
yeah,
and then they behead the statue of Athena at the same time, and so he immediately now has this connection between the two, and I think that, yeah, it had to be that moment was kind of the tiny version that made him realize, what are we doing? What have we become as a civilization? We're not who we came in here, and now I'm learning that we're not who we thought we were. And I think he needed to be on more of a journey to fully understand that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess in universe too, or in the story, like learning to respect his gods too. In a way that he didn't really before. Like he took Athena because Penelope gave him the statue or whatever, and then he learned devotion to Athena through his life. And so I guess that also gives me hope about like experiences in our lives too, that like thinking about how it is that no matter what our life circumstances are, that we look for ways that we can see the divine presence in our lives, and that we can come to terms with how we can be better people, and maybe even better people than we've been, and what that means. So I agree with you. I think that's why it's not just that it wouldn't have been a story if they'd gone on the other route. It's that like that life is the adventure, and it, the adventure that he goes on there was
we could go on and on. I think we both really just genuinely enjoyed this movie, and there's so much to unpack. Just for this segment alone, I had 5 potential questions.
And I didn't steal a single
You
one.
didn't steal any of them.
Man, this season, I am just, I suck at that.
You're off your game. You're off your game. I don't know what it is. I'm disappointed. I'm not.
Me too.
I am not.
Me too.
I am not. I'm glad I don't have to scramble to find questions. So listen, we know that we need to come up with something for our next show. And we've got this kind of cool little thread that runs through here. So we just saw Tom Holland, right? And in 2 weeks, his Spider-Man movie comes out. And in the meantime, we haven't talked about a different Spider-Man thing, Spider Noir, which was, I think we both very much enjoyed. It was a happy surprise. And we were excited about talking about it, but life's happened and we weren't able to get back to it. So it feels like kind of the perfect little stepping stone into the next Tom Holland's thing we're going to talk about. So what do you think? Spider Noir for next week.
That sounds great. I mean, Tom Holland and Zendaya. I mean, that's the other thing.
Both,
right? Yeah. But that was the other thing. I walked out of the movie and I said, Tom Holland and Zendaya, they were never on the screen. They didn't share any screen time together.
It was great.
Yeah,
that's great. I love it.
We'll see.
All right. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun, and like I said, we could have unpacked a lot more, but I think what we did was interesting to think about, and we appreciate everyone who showed up, hung in with us throughout this show. You are the reason we get to do this, our favorite thing that we do every week. So thank you. We really appreciate it. And having said that, I'm also going to just say, we'll see you next week on the Moonshine Jesus Show.